So this is the 99 extension of the MCO. I'm a bit sick of it already. I've since lost sight of all colors. What New Year's resolution? What resolution? How am I to survive another extension when I have to deal with this CCTV monitor when I game and do my work? How lah? You tell me. How lah? So like all of you guys in Malaysia, I've been stuck at home for the past few months because of MCO and because of all my whining. BenQ has decided to send me something that they said is affordable enough for you guys and bangsawan enough for me. So check out this monitor. Doesn't look very special lah, but we're gonna cut it open and see what's inside. So as you guys can see, we are at home, which is why I found the weirdest looking knife in the kitchen and decided to do the unboxing today with it. Any problem, bro? Got problem, ah? Like a virgin, open for the very first time. First and foremost, the HDMI cable, power cable, which is the 3-pin one, which means that this monitor probably has a power supply that is internal. There's no Thunderbolt sign. So this is a USB-C cable. Controller, very nice. This is probably not the safest way to unbox this monitor, but you know what? I'm a dangerous man. I like to take this. Ah! Okay, so let's see if I can figure out what the spec is before we break out the instructions menu. Okay? Right, this is the stand. Quite solid. Should be aluminum lah. And there's a cooler screw at the bottom, which I assume you can just screw onto the monitor itself. There are two more bags of stuff here, and the first one is actually what seems to be a rubber silicone thing, which I don't know what it is. We'll just find out later. We have the neck of the monitor. Danger. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is the neck. So there we go. So always open the monitor with the accessories on top. That means the monitor itself should be facing down. In most cases lah, if the manufacturers got actually pakai otak. There you go. You have this. So I'm gonna assemble this monitor quickly and we're gonna look at the specs together. Let's get cracking. So we're gonna review this thing and look at the specs in 3, 2, 1. The first thing you will see, come here, look, from behind, belakang mari, you see the BenQ logo and then the superior sound by Trevolo. Really cool, very sleek. The back is black plastic, very fingerprint resistant. As you can see, I have clammy hands, but it's not showing any fingerprints. Front of the chassis is about the same. Wow, the bezel is really thin. As you can see, it's almost non-existent. The front you can see is a speaker bar, probably stereo configuration, kind of like a sound bar. And then you have this panel here, which I assume is the infrared receiver for the control. And then behind here, as you can see, here is the OSD. You have the joystick, the on button, off button at the bottom. And then when it comes to the connectivity, HDMI 2.0, 1, 2, and then a display port 1.4 and a USB-C, probably the upstream. And then we have the power cable. Although the power supply is actually built inside the chassis itself, it's not too bulky lah. Oh hey, there's also another dial here, which I assume is for volume. So Elaine has just pulled out the specs for the monitor right here. And before I read this, I'm just gonna make some speculations and see if I'm correct or not. Okay, based on the size, it's 32 inch and it's now 2020. This is probably a 4K monitor. And judging by how it's constructed with the backlight and stuff like that, probably an IPS panel. The speaker is here lor, so got inbuilt speaker lah, most probably. They say Trevolo. Let's see how right or wrong I am. This is the BenQ EW3280U 4K. See? 4K, right? Entertainment monitor with HDRi, IPS panel. See? Wide gamut color space with FreeSync. Built-in 2.1 channel speaker. 2.1 means that there's a sub in this thing. It has intelligent control, detects the current ambient light level. So I assume there is some sort of sensor somewhere. Could be here, in front. And it has stunning clarity, vivid colors, all the marketing stuff that you usually see. They say that this has 95% DCI P3. This is an overview, not really a review, so I'm not going to actually test that. It has USB-C, eye care, which is a blue light filtering thing. So they got different sound modes. We have the cinema sound mode, we got the pop life sound mode, we got dialogue, vocal, rock party, game. So it's all in one entertainment machine for you. As you can see, if you remove these plastic covers, you're gonna see the VESA mount on top, and on the neck of the monitor itself, here's a space for you to manage your cables. So this thing is actually a placemat for the controller. So you can put it like that. So the controller, you can turn on and off the HDRi. You have the settings button. This is the blue light filter, I guess. Okay, you have the volume controls here. You have the source button here. You have this up, down, right, left keypad with the OK on-off button. So here's a pro tip for some of you guys who are using a 32-inch monitor for the first time. You need to make sure that your desk has enough depth, because the screen is actually quite big, especially when you're gaming in 4K and using higher resolutions like that. I would recommend that you have at least 2 feet of desk space in front of you, because I feel that having another 1 feet outside of the desk when you lean back and view the monitor is actually still quite acceptable. So let's take a look at some of the tweaks that we should do to get HDR in 4K. The first thing that you should do is to turn on Play HDR game and apps. Depending on how big you want your icons to be, I recommend that you choose 150% up to maybe 200% or 250% in terms of the scale and the size of text, apps and other items. And just now when I was testing out the monitor, I came across a very weird bug. This is Chrome and this is Edge. Both are playing the same Battlefield 5 demo with HDR. This side, as you can see, I've set it to 4K with HDR. Here in Edge, it doesn't seem to be that option, but what they did was they actually set it to HDR for me. As you can see, this is definitely HDR and this is not. So if you bought this monitor and then when you turn on Chrome to play some HDR videos and it doesn't work, now you know, okay? I don't know if this is gonna get fixed, but this is what I'm facing right now. Now let me just play this Battlefield 5 demo in 4K HDR and let you know what I think about the viewing experience as well as the audio. It's pumping up quite a bit of volume in this listening distance. About 3 feet. You can see as there are explosions, the peak brightness coming through on all those hot spots, as well as from the light sources. The blacks are pretty black, not pitch black like OLED, but it's pretty black. One thing that I can say is that if you're in a bright room like mine with so many windows, the brightness can be a little bit underwhelming, but if you're in a normal viewing room, either with your curtains closed to avoid glare, or if you're in your study room or your gaming room, it should be plenty bright. So as you can see, there are multiple modes for the audio. I'm going to set it to cinema.
Technology moved faster than you could think how to use it. Yours, theirs, it didn't matter. This war would prove that from ocean bed to mountaintop.
So overall, as you can hear, there is quite a bit of clarity in the mid-range when the guy is speaking, the narrator is speaking, as well as the low end is actually pretty beefy for a built-in speaker set that is. It's actually much better than a lot of monitors that I've tested before. When it comes to the sheer volume that it's pumping up, it's really good for what it is, but if you want something a little bit louder, you probably have to buy a higher quality soundbar or use like bookshelf speakers that I use, which is like the generic 2.0 setup, as well as if you can buy a subwoofer, then you get a 2.1. But for a built-in set of speakers, it does give a little bit more punch in the low end, which I assume is because there's a subwoofer somewhere in the configuration. Pretty impressed overall. So we are here with our editing PC with the RTX 2080 Super, and we're playing some Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Here in the settings, go to Display and HDR, and then you click on and apply changes. As you can see, you're going to adjust your luminance to get the best experience out of this. So let's check out the different HDR modes. The first one is Cinema HDR. Seems to be very high contrast and the black level is quite low. It's quite black down there. Game HDR, which is a little bit flatter, but still you're going to get quite a bit of dynamic range right there, and the black is not as black. And finally, we have Display HDR, which seems to be a defined balance between the two. So, okay, we're gonna go with this one. So as you can see with the intelligence features, we can't really adjust the HDR luminance. So I guess we'll just have to trust the monitor to know what's going on. Let's go and play some Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Okay, looking at the HDR of this game, actually it's quite cool, the design. You can see that there's a huge range of gradients when it comes to the lighting, especially when it comes to the light source. The blacks are pretty black. You're gonna get that flare, which is really cool. It's a bit of screen tearing because we didn't turn on adaptive VSync.
What do you mean?
Okay, will I say that the HDR helps with immersion with games like these? Yes, because in an SDR game, when you play something like that and a light is supposed to be blinding bright, you don't feel the intensity of the light because the monitor is not able to show it to you. And especially when you're gaming in a room like this, that is, you know, like a room, the brightness of this monitor is more than adequate. It's amazing, if you ask me.
We can do good now!
So here's a little tip for you guys with monitors with FreeSync, and if you're using a NVIDIA graphics card, use the DisplayPort and not HDMI, and go into your computer, right click on this NVIDIA icon, go into the NVIDIA control panel, and then go to setup G-Sync, and now you can see you can enable G-Sync if it's G-Sync compatible, enable it for full screen mode. So you can get rid of that screen tearing that you saw just now while I was playing the game. So here are my closing thoughts about this BenQ EW3280U 4K HDRi monitor. Whew, that's a mouthful. But anyways, the first thing I like about this is the size, which I think is the optimum size for 4K viewing on a desktop. The fact that it has an IPS panel with a very good color accuracy, well, advertised color accuracy, would mean that you can also use it for work. The bezel is really thin, which will give you a very immersive viewing experience when you watch movies or play games. The speaker is actually pretty impressive as far as built-in speakers are concerned. Build quality is also excellent. As you can see, the stand is not the sturdiest. However, I like the fact that it comes with a VISA mount, so you can actually mount it however you like. But I do like the small footprint of the leg, so it doesn't take up so much space, and the fact that this silicone placemat for the controller fits right in. It's not too intrusive on your desk. Design-wise, it's pretty simple, minimalist, and should fit on most desks and in most rooms. Let's move on to some nitpicks that I have with this monitor. The first one is the fact that it doesn't have any USB ports, which you can use to connect your mouse or keyboard and make cable management easier. Secondly, this color that they have chosen, which is somewhat of a rose gold kind of looking thing, might not be to everybody's taste. And finally, if you are using this in a bright room, like your living room with white walls or a lot of windows, the HDR brightness is actually barely bright enough. Overall, this monitor is pretty awesome when it comes to gaming, watching videos, and working, and I would give it a score of 8 out of 10. If you thought this video is awesome, don't forget to like and share, and leave a comment down below to let us know if you're ready to jump to 4K, since the next gen consoles are coming out by the end of this year, I hope. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, and hit the notification bell on YouTube to see more content like this. And I'll see you! And yes, I'm talking about you lah. Come closer, come closer. In the next one.